Hi, how are you? Today I'm going to talk with you about moderation. And moderation is a concept that you'll hear in different contexts, and that includes in multiple regression. And so I want you to have an idea about what we mean when we talk about moderation, testing moderators, and a term that you will hear in relation to moderation and testing moderators is the idea of an interaction. So let's talk about that. Okay, so let me see. I got my marker here somewhere. They have a whole selection of markers here for me. It's like a feast or famine situation, and I've got like a ton of markers here, so I'm feeling good. Okay, so let's say, because when we talk about moderation, we're basically asking the question, how do we understand effects, and how do we understand effects of a variable on another variable? So let's kind of just go down to basics on this in talking about effects. Okay, so down to like the basic level of this, we talk about an effect. We're talking about an effect of an x variable on a y variable. The x variable is some independent variable, or in regression, we might refer to that as a predictor variable. And the effect of that independent variable, x, on some dependent variable. In regression, that is also referred to as an outcome variable. And if we're talking about the effect as a main effect, we are talking about the effect of x on y in terms of there being one effect of x on y. That's the idea. That's what we are assuming when we see something drawn like this. There is an effect of x on y, and we're talking about one effect of x on y. And this would be called the main effect of x on y, and it applies across a variety of differences among people. It doesn't matter with the main effect. All that is averaged across. And we're just talking about one effect of x on y. All right. But now let's introduce the idea of a moderator. And when we talk about a moderator, we'll also talk about that in regards to testing an interaction effect. So testing an interaction, that involves the test of a moderator. So let's bring the moderator in. Okay, we're going to call the moderator here variable z. I'll make a little line right here, variable z. And this is an independent variable as well. In regression, we refer to that as a predictor variable. This is also an independent variable or predictor variable. Here we have our dependent variable or outcome variable. And we're going to test variable z as a moderator. And I just want to point out again that z is an independent variable. It is in regression language, we're talking about regression, a predictor variable. But however, we want to test it in a particular role. We want to test it in the role of being a moderator. Okay. And if we're going to depict this graphically, we would do something like this. Okay, so note what we have here. We're asking if the moderator z has some effect or influence on the effect of x on y. Okay, so now we're asking something that will add complexity if the test of the moderator is significant. It will add complexity to the effect of x on y if the variable z, the moderator, if it is found to have a significant influence on the effect of x on y. So that arrow, that's why it's pointed right here at this effect of x on y, because we're asking if this moderator variable, z, significantly influences the effect of x on y. By the way, I want to point this out to you. When we talk about testing the significance of moderators, here we're testing the moderator z, we're talking about testing the effect of the moderator within the context of an x by z interaction, or the combined effect of independent variables x and z on the dependent variable y. And that's called an x by z interaction as it affects y. Okay? So when you hear about moderation and testing moderators, you'll hear about that in the context of testing interactions. And specifically, the interaction we're testing here is the x by z interaction. I want you to note that in an interaction, you have independent variables. This would be called a two-way interaction, x by z interaction. Two-way interaction, meaning it involves two independent variables, or in the context of regression, two predictor variables. The variables that are involved in an interaction that you're testing have particular roles. And so the x variable in this depiction, and we'll talk about this now within the context of regression, has the role of the focal predictor. And the z variable within this x by z interaction has the role, you guessed it, of the moderator. And so when you're considering an interaction and the significance of an interaction, you have to ask yourself, well, which of the independent variables or predictor variables in the interaction, in this case the x by z interaction, which one is the focal predictor and which one is the moderator? And if you see an illustration like this, you know, okay? We're talking about the effect of x on y. Well, we're talking about the effect of the focal predictor on y. And we're asking if that effect is influenced by variable z, our moderator, if the moderator is influencing the effect of the focal predictor on y, our dependent variable. Okay? So you do need to know the particular roles of the independent variables that are involved in the interaction you're testing. Here, this x by z interaction, x being the focal predictor, and you're testing the moderator z to see if it's influencing the effect of the focal predictor on y, our dependent variable. Okay, so now let's take this a step further. So let's take a look here. I'm going to do this here. There you go. And here we have our focal predictor, x. And it is on our horizontal or x-axis. And we have our dependent variable. In the context of regression, often referred to as the outcome variable. So here's our dependent variable. On our vertical axis, y. But don't forget about the moderator. Now, before I put the moderator in, I want you to note something. All we're talking about so far is a main effect. We're talking about the effect of the focal predictor on the dependent variable. And that's it. We're not taking into account anything else in terms of other variables. Okay, a moderator is just the effect of the focal predictor on the dependent variable, and maybe the effect looks like this. Well, that's one effect. That's the main effect, one effect of the focal predictor on the dependent variable. Okay, the focal predictor, x, on the dependent variable, y. All right, but now we want to introduce some complexity to this effect. This, as a main effect, just this one effect that we're depicting of the focal predictor on the dependent variable. We want to introduce some possible complexity to that effect. And in fact, in the example that I'm going to give you, we're going to test to see if rather than one effect, we actually have two effects of the focal predictor on the dependent variable, depending on the particular status of our moderator, z. So now we're adding some complexity to our understanding of the effect of the focal predictor on the dependent variable. Okay, now let me step around wires here and stuff. Here I go, I'm reaching over here to get this eraser. Go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, we're going to put this moderator variable, z, that we are now going to be testing as part of an x by z interaction that we're testing, and looking to see if we get an x by z interaction effect, significant interaction effect. We're going to introduce the moderator, and we're going to introduce the moderator by bringing it into the graph. Okay? And so here is our moderator variable. And we're going to talk about, and by the way, we can do this in different ways, okay? But traditionally, you see it done this way, okay? So I say traditionally, you know, that differs for different people. If you're young, traditionally is like, I don't know, last week. For me, traditionally, like goes way back. Okay, I don't want to say how far. I feel old just like talking about how far, you know, traditionally would mean for me, okay? But for me, traditionally means, in terms of how the moderator is treated, in terms of different levels of the moderator, it means, well, 3 levels technically speaking, but really, watch what happens to my finger here now, something's going to happen to it. Really, like 2 levels. So like, see, I'm creakier than I used to be. I can only take this so far. So 2 levels, these 2 right here. This one in the middle kind of goes away, okay? But I'm going to give you all 3 just for a moment, and then I'll show you the 2, okay? So here's one level of the moderator. And we're going to call that high on the moderator. And then, more technically speaking, you may have a level that, well, in fact, you do have a level, but again, it's more technical because we really don't end up looking at it traditionally. And this is medium level on the moderator. And then, here we have low on the moderator. Okay, now, but watch what happens. Amazing what you can do with a marker. See, like this. So you can understand this conceptually as having these 3 levels on the moderator: high, medium, and low. Okay, but in terms of what traditionally people would end up looking at, you'll notice it's not medium, because you see how it's going away. Okay, there it goes. Bye-bye, medium. I mean, it's there, but traditionally people really wouldn't give it a lot of attention. What they would give attention to are these 2 levels on the moderator, high and low. All right, now, let me do something with this. Because, you know, the resources I got for doing this with you, it's kind of limited. Okay, we got like, cramped kind of situations. I don't have like a lot of room here to work with you on. So I need all the space I can get. So we're going to kind of bring this up. So we have two levels on the moderator we're actually going to look at. High on the moderator, low on the moderator. Okay, so now you have your interaction plot or interaction graph basically set up. Your focal predictor is on your x-axis, your horizontal axis. We're interested in its effect on the dependent variable here on the y-axis or the vertical axis. And we're seeing if that effect of the focal predictor on the dependent variable is influenced by the particular level of the moderator. And we're going to look at that in terms of high on the moderator and low on the moderator. Okay, so now let's get more specific about it. Okay? Getting more specific, we're going to actually give some names to these variables. Okay? So let's look at our focal predictor as, let's say job satisfaction. Okay? How satisfied is somebody with their job? Job satisfaction. Funny looking S there, isn't it? Anyway, job satisfaction. And we're interested in the effect of one's level of job satisfaction on our dependent variable, which we're going to have in this case be organizational. That's org, O-R-G, org, organizational commitment. Now, one thing you'll notice about me whenever I talk about organizational commitment and I try to spell commitment, I never know whether it's like 2 M's or 2 T's or whatever it is. So don't take any spelling lessons from me when it comes to how to spell commitment. All right. So we're asking whether the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment is influenced by the particular level on the moderator, high or low. And let's have the moderator be salary. Okay, so now, to put this in more specific terms as an example, we're asking the question, is the effect of job satisfaction, the level of one's job satisfaction on one's level of organizational commitment, influenced by whether one receives, a person receives, an employee receives a high salary or a low salary? Now, I can tell you right now, if the test of the interaction, which is going to be the test in this example of the job satisfaction by salary interaction as it affects organizational commitment, if that interaction is significant, you know something right off the bat. And what you know is, from the moment you see the significant interaction, job satisfaction by salary interaction, is that rather than having one effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, you actually have 2 effects. One for persons at a high salary and another different effect for people who have a low salary, for employees who have a low salary. That you know the moment you see the significant interaction. In this case, the job satisfaction by salary interaction being significant. Now, let's say that job satisfaction by salary interaction is not significant. Then what you know is that you have one effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, regardless of one's salary level. That is a concerned salary. It doesn't matter whether employees are receiving a high salary or a low salary. You're getting the same effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. Okay? So you'd know that the moment that you saw that the job satisfaction by salary interaction was not significant. So just seeing whether the interaction effect is significant or not tells you a lot right there. All right, but let's look at it further, and let's say that we have a significant job satisfaction by salary interaction effect. And let's say it looks something like this. Okay, so among people who are at let's start with a low salary, perhaps the effect looks like this. All right, well, that's saying that for people who are at a low salary, you have what may very well be a strong effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment. But perhaps we see this effect, this different effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment among people who are employees who are at a high salary level, so who get a high salary, and it looks something like this. Now, that might turn out to be a significant effect. It may or may not. However, it's certainly, with the significant interaction, you could say with confidence that this is a decidedly weaker effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment for people who are at a high salary, right here. It's a rather shallow slope. And among people who are at a low salary, the effect appears to be considerably stronger. We appear to have a considerably steeper slope here. All right? And by the way, all of this needs to be confirmed statistically as you do what is called a test of simple slopes. Right here in the middle of this interaction graph, conceptually, looking at it, you can actually test if that slope for people who are at a high salary, if that's significantly different than being a flat slope, and you'd be doing the same thing here for this slope for people who are at a low salary level. So you're going to test all of this statistically with a test of simple slopes. However, you've gone a long way in knowing what's going on here by the fact that you have, in this example, a significant job satisfaction by salary interaction, because that's telling you now that you just don't have one effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment, but the effect that you have depends on an employee's salary level, high or low. High salary appears to be a considerably weaker effect than among employees at a low salary, where the effect appears to be considerably stronger. All right, so that's what you have, and this is an interaction graph depicting what I'm using as an example here, a significant job satisfaction by salary interaction, where you would say that, well, the effect of job satisfaction on organizational commitment depends on the level of one's salary, high or low. All right, so now you know some important things about moderation and the testing of interactions. And with that, I wish you a good day.